Hi, this is Nick from Talkhouse, and you're listening to the latest episode of my spin-off series of the Talkhouse Podcast called Nobody's Ever Asked Me That. Each episode, I talk to a filmmaker, musician, or writer and aim to ask them questions they've never heard before in an interview, in an effort to discover a different side of them and understand them better. For me, the ideal guest is someone who is not just brilliant, accomplished, and interesting, but who also has that rare mix of both introspectiveness and openness. The guest on today's episode, the actor Lili Taylor, is arguably a perfect embodiment of all those traits. I really loved watching Lili Taylor in kind of anything, as she's such a distinctive, original presence. She made her reputation in the 90s with indie classics such as Nancy Savoca's Dogfight, Jim McKay's Girls Town, Abel Ferrara's The Addiction, and Mary Harron's I Shot Andy Warhol. And then, of course, there's also Emir Kusturica's criminally overlooked Arizona Dream, plus on the small screen 6 Feet Under, American Crime, and Outer Range. She's one of those actors who you can always depend on to be great, regardless of what the film or show is. The reason for Lili being on the podcast is she just published a book called Turning to Birds, a collection of essays that traces her love affair with birdwatching, and also the ways in which the skills she's honed as an actor have transferred over to her hobby. She writes beautifully about memorable encounters with birds, from communing with a grey catbird in Bryant Park and an American woodcock magically landing on her chest, to fighting for the survival of some nesting eastern bluebirds and observing the overwhelming majesty of a huge throng of sandhill cranes. Turning to Birds is thoughtful, passionate, and deeply human, and is a continuation of the work she has done through sitting on the board of both the National Audubon Society and the American Birding Association, as an advocate and ambassador for birds. I knew talking to Lili was going to be a really engaging experience, partly because we'd spoken before, once on the record and once off, about our mutual love of birds. So naturally, we talked a lot more about that topic, but often in connection with a bunch of life stuff, like how recovery and birding intersect, choosing binoculars, or bins as we birders call them, over drugs, her love of naps, how nature has shifted her relationship to death, me getting barked at by a coyote in the Bronx, braving the acting version of The Bends after finishing a role, her amazing way of releasing resentment, facing the unknown, how she's finding resilience and playing the long game as this country plunges into crisis, and much more. I think the last time that you and I spoke, you told me that this book was in the works, and I was very excited to hear that. And it was really cool. I read it a couple weeks ago. I went out birding, and then I sat in Sunset Park, my local park, and sat on a bench and read the first half. And then I think the day later, I read the second half, and it was kind of this idyllic thing. I was in the sun. Birds were singing around me, and it just felt like a perfect setting to just enjoy and sort of luxuriate in this celebration of birds. It's really cool that it exists, and it's a beautiful book. It's beautifully written. The sentiment of it is so much in line with, and I don't think I've outed myself as a birder on this podcast, but I am a birder as.
Oh.
So.
This is the first time you're saying it on the podcast? I think
so, yeah. The funny thing is the first episode I did, I kind of outed myself as a recovery person semi-accidentally, which I don't think we have talked about in the past.
We have not.
But I'm really intrigued because, for me, the two things are very intertwined in the sense of peace that I get while out birding and the need to step back from myself and just observe.
Right.
It's like tapping into the stuff that I need to work on in myself. So I'm intrigued for you, how much of that is sort of at play for you in your life as a person in recovery as well.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I mean, you can see it sprinkled throughout many of the things, right? I think one of the big things is that I'm sort of wired to say no to a lot of new situations.
Yeah.
And birds have helped me say yes.
Yeah.
Or to keep investigating when I feel like turning around.
That's really interesting. Has that sort of flowed back into your life in the sense of saying yes to things that otherwise might have seemed closed off to you in some way, or?
It could possibly. I mean, it could be age, it could be experiences, but I can't see how it wouldn't impact because it's almost like practice and a muscle. And how could it not kind of impact other parts of my life,
Yeah, because for me, I don't know, I meditate, and every morning I do that before, if I'm going out birding. it's sort of this act of self-restraint to meditate before I go out, because what I really want to do is just rush out of the house and immediately go find all the birds, because, I want to go see what's there. But instead, I sit myself down for 15 minutes and just kind of be.
That's smart.
And I think that sort of pause between impulse and action, for me, it's like another important muscle to.
That's right.
To really develop.
Definitely. I'm not there.
Okay. In terms of the meditation or in terms of that gap?
I'm not really great yet about when there's somewhere I want to be or go, about slowing down. I still have a feeling like there'll be no birds if I don't move faster.
Yeah.
There'll be no coffee left at the cafe if I don't get there.
Yeah.
It's really distorted thinking. And I know it. I know it as I'm rushing there, but I'm not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I grew up with a scarcity mentality. And I think there's a big part of me that really wants to get there before everything has run out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, there's a line in your book where you say, I don't do drugs, I do bins. And I love that. And does it feel like a direct, because I know there's this whole thing in recovery where they talk about like the whack-a-mole thing, of where the crazy goes. Like you stop doing whatever it is that is, slowly killing you or quickly killing you, and you do something else. That's where this energy is redirected. Does it feel like birding has kind of been one of the positive outlets for you of the
a positive, not like, right, exactly. It's not a whack-a-mole. It's a positive. And in terms of what's nice about is that the bins can feel like a drug in that they're transporting, is that it's totally legit. It's like what naps can do for me. I mean, naps can take me out of things for a while, and it's like, it's legal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very important. Yeah. I have weirdly resisted naps a lot. I'm trying to harness the power of the 20-minute nap, because I think I'm always terrified if I stop. Maybe it's the same scarcity thing, but
exactly.
Yeah. Like if I stop, then will I be unable to get anything done the rest of the day?
Exactly. Yeah. That is not a problem I have. It's funny how it manifests so differently, right?
Yeah. I'm always intrigued about the way that rest figures into people's lives, especially creative people. Like, are you somebody who's good at creating those pockets for rest and monitoring where your body's at and kind of calibrating?
I think so. I think I'm pretty good at that. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's because I hadn't been working as much as I wanted to work. So some of it was not so much by choice, but I know intellectually that we need to be refurbished, that we need to get rejuvenated. I know that because I've read plenty about it. And just from, when I read about sports, and knowing in fact, one coach, when the team basketball coach lands in the new city, he has everyone take a nap,
That's really interesting.
So I know the importance of it. So I'll take a break, even though maybe mentally I might be like not that restful inside. I'm technically taking the break. Or like when I was writing, I would do 45 minutes and then take a break for 30 minutes, 45, 30, 45, and then I would stop. And then I could do whatever I wanted for the rest of the afternoon.
That's cool. Yeah, I feel like that regimented approach to writing is really having a schedule and having blocks of time that are.
Yeah, and that means blocking in time too for mental health or physical health.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, one of the things that I observed, but I wrote a book years ago, and I'm a workaholic, and I will either be writing or not be writing at all. And having a balanced way of incorporating writing into my schedule, into my day, is really hard. My daughter was born the year that book came out. And so my sense of balance just went out the window. I do aspire to writing something again one day, but it's going to have to be around my day job. It's going to have to be around family. It's going to have to work around birding. It's going to have to work around friendships. And it's like time is such a luxury.
Exactly. I mean, my daughter's 17, so I'm in a very different place.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have been able to do this earlier. I might not have,
Yeah. So how finding that balance, has that been an ongoing thing for you? Because for your job, I know you travel a lot. So how, like when you're back, you're solely in family mode? There's a clear division?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is easier with acting because you're either doing it or you're not for the most part. And so it's a little bit easier to do all or nothing.
Yeah. Going back to the recovery stuff, there's a bit where you talked about birding restoring your neural pathways. And I think about that in terms of my own recovery and my dysfunctional brain or whatever, and how birding has sort of rewired it. I'd love to hear what that's been for you in terms of what the repair has been in that regard.
Well, I mean, I think one of the neural pathways almost seems like not just expecting the worst, but it's also like it can have like not a nihilism in a way, that there's nothing, there's no reason to get up, or there's no reason to, because sometimes like I don't feel like enough in a way to get up.
Oh, yeah.
Like I wouldn't get up for me.
Right.
But I'll get up for my daughter, but I'll also get up for, but birds have helped me see that there's a lot more going on out there. There's a lot to take in and experience. So whatever that part of me that doesn't seem to want me to participate in life or something, birds have helped bridge that and help me feel a part of. Maybe it's that I don't feel a part of. And birds have helped me feel a part of.
Yeah. What I love about you is that I feel in the book and in so much of the work that you've done around birds, I feel like there's a sense of responsibility. You're sort of like the ambassador for the creative community, or one of the ambassadors. And I feel like the way that you convey that, like there's a great nobility to that. But I wonder if there's also like a sense of weight to that. The book to me feels like an act of service. Is maybe another way of saying it.
It's still new because it's only been out like a week and a half or something. I mean, there could be a weight, but I'm wondering if, because it's birds, it may not. Like, I don't know. There's something about the birds have softened a lot of I didn't have a lot of rigmarole going on up in the head when I was writing. It was hard, of course, but birds just always kind of came in there and was sort of, I don't know, maybe if I was on behalf of children or on behalf of, I don't know, but somehow it feels lighter with birds or something.
Yeah. I think that I tend to take everything and turn it into like an albatross. Ironically, that's a bird. But
I do know what you're meaning. I mean, there's a responsibility, but right now I have the energy for it. And I'm only like a layperson. I'm not an expert. If I was an expert, I think I'd be under a little bit more pressure, but I'm not. And it's so great. I can be like, oh, no, I did not go to school for this.
Yeah. It's true. That takes the pressure off. Definitely. I think a lot about the way that being in nature so much has shifted my perception of things that are not nature. Like I used to be very squeamish, and if there was a dead animal, I would avert my eyes immediately and just feel anxious and I guess repulsed maybe is the right word. But that has really shifted over the past few years. And I wondered for you, like, obviously death is one of the great topics and the looming shadow of everything, but how for you, the bigger topics like that have, like your perception of them have shifted through being in nature so much, through observing birds as you have for so many years.
Yeah, it's been sobering in a really good way. And it's been more right-sized, and a lot more is allowed in, because it's like there's no favorites. There's no fair. It just is. And it's a much more comfortable place for me to be, even though it's kind of bracing at times and it can kind of hurt sometimes, but also just knowing that it's life, and it's been going on for millions and millions of years. And even if some of it seems new, like some of it seems like, but no, this is new though. This is not stuff that's been in the program for the last millions of years. Well, even that, it is happening now. And I guess there were things, I mean, that asteroid must have felt pretty new when that came down. And like, wait a minute, this seems like a bad thing, like, a really bad thing, but so I guess that's what it is. It's like, there's no bad.
Yeah.
It just is.
And that's one of those intellectual concepts that I feel like we have to absorb through experience, rather than it's like we just accepting it without life experience is kind of impossible, I feel like.
You're right. Yeah, I know. Exactly.
You wrote really compellingly about the nesting bluebirds and the babies being killed by house sparrows and then, going after the house sparrows to eliminate the threat to the bluebirds. Like, how did you take on that? It feels like there's a shift that takes place there where there's this reckoning with the life of one creature is dependent on the death of another. And how did that feel for you? Was that an easy thing to accept or absorb or take on?
No, it was messy. The whole thing was messy, and it was great too, because that really was, one of my spark bird moments or my awakening. I kind of used that fairy tale motif, but it really did feel like going through these dark woods and having these obstacles and coming out of those woods and having learned some important things. And I think like with a lot of the nature and man stuff, they're not easy answers. And what might work with one situation might not work with another. What worked yesterday might not work today. And so it's to keep that kind of resilient, flexible attitude to stay in the day with it, because it can feel so overwhelming and it can feel like, there's just no way. I mean, as a birder, the obstacles facing birds, can start to feel like, forget it. It's too much, but you just get through today. You try to make things as manageable as you can. And so in that case, well, some choices like, okay, I chose to be a bluebird monitor. I knew that it was a responsibility, and I'd read up on the house sparrows, and I knew that if I was going to keep the boxes up, that I needed to deal with the problem, or it was not being fair to the bluebirds. It was being irresponsible. So I guess it was just like that wisdom to know the difference,
Yeah.
And learning like, I didn't even know like there were protected birds and birds that aren't protected. I didn't know that there was a way to value or to, ethics and all that. I didn't know any of that. And and I was able to justify and feel okay about what I was doing.
It's funny when you said the wisdom to know the difference. I have a friend who describes the Serenity Prayer as like a Swiss Army knife. It's kind of like this thing that you can use in any situation in life to work out a problem. I like that.
That's right.
I love that that sort of figured in that.
That's right.
It's really cool.
Oh, one more thing. Another barometer that I use a lot is, am I accompanying or am I interfering? When it's a wild nature thing. And to answer that helps me decide what way I'm going. Because sometimes it's hard to tell. Like, it feels like I'm helping this baby bird, that I'm accompanying this baby bird by helping, but maybe I'm interfering. And to weigh that. So that I just wanted to just put that last one out there. That barometer that I use, that's helpful.
No, that is super helpful. On that topic, there's a park in the Bronx where there's like breeding coyotes. And
wow.
And I visited it for birding a bunch of times last year. And there was one moment where I was walking up a hill and a coyote was at the top of the hill. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to look at it. I'm just going to do what I would have done anyway. I don't want to get in its way, but I also don't want to change what I would have done too much. And then it barked at me, and I've never been barked at by a coyote before. And I was like, okay, I'm changing course, because clearly that was the message that I needed.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. And it was during the day. Wait, what time?
Like 9, 10 in the morning.
Ooh, that's kind of early. I don't usually see them out that early in the morning. If I saw a coyote out at 9 or 10 in the morning, I would, to me, I don't know them that well, but I have them upstate, and I really like coyotes. I would maybe consider that's a little unusual to me, but maybe they've adapted. Maybe they stay up during the day now.
Yeah. I think this is an adaptation and sort of like night hunting that's sort of drifted into the early morning.
Sure.
And talking of which, I'm always really fascinated by people's morning routines. And some people have one and some people don't. Do you have a morning routine?
No. Coffee, coffee, and I like to be quiet. Yeah.
I guess maybe logically following on from that, are you a night person?
Yeah.
Is that your most creative time? Or what are the things that, because for me, it was always like, I finally had time and space to do the things that I wanted to do. And I would usually write, but what is it for you?
Oh, really? Really? But I want to find something that I'd read about, hold on a minute, 1 second. If I can't find it within like 20 seconds, I'll let it go. But I
take your time.
I might be able to.
We have time.
Thank you. Hold on. Oh, okay. Your child stays up until a ridiculous time of night morning because they feel it's the only time they're free of pressure and expectation and can be totally alone and just vibe being themselves for a little while. And this is from this account I follow called Introvert Problems.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just love that account, man. Almost every single thing I like identify with. And that felt so good because that felt like that was me, but everyone thought I was crazy because I'd stay up sometimes till, 5, really, really late. And everybody's always in my 20s. I stayed up late and I'd always felt weird, but I think I was just getting the time and space that I needed. That's when things felt like I could quiet down. Everyone else was quiet. I felt inspired. I felt excited, hopeful. And I didn't write, or sometimes I did, but I would just I could get busy with anything.
Yeah. So do you identify as an introvert?
Oh God, yeah. One definition I've heard that I like a lot is extroverts get their energy from being around people and introverts get their energy from being alone. And so it's really more about an energy thing, right? As opposed to, not liking people or shy and so I get my energy from being alone. I also do get energy, of course, from being with people and stuff, but I've seen extroverts wilt when they are not around people. Like they just sort of start to shrivel up or something.
Yeah. Do you think that most actors are extroverts?
Not necessarily.
Because I feel like that's the default thinking.
Really? No, not necessarily. I don't. And that's why it just goes to show you, it's like, yeah, I'm a total introvert and yet I can be in front of a large audience. I can, do crazy things on stage and so on. But if I don't recharge my battery, then I'll get into trouble,
Yeah.
So I guess like exhibition versus introversion, it's like to be uninhibited. You can be uninhibited and be an introvert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it easier as an actor to be around others when you're not, I guess, being yourself for a lot of that time?
Do you mean around like regular people or around the other actors that I'm acting with?
Around other actors, crew, etc.
Like while I'm working on that character?
Yeah.
It's always easier to be with the people who are in the thing with you because, it has its own like time and space. And it's very hard to understand it if you're not in it because you're creating a world and everyone who's in that world, even the crew, even though they may not be quite in the world that we're in because they're not pretending that they live on that set that they're building or that they're lighting.
Yeah.
But so actors go that other level, but we're all in this bizarre situation where we're essentially creating a pretend universe all day. And it's weird. It's weird. And when you're around people who are doing it, you have a shorthand. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to talk on the phone tonight. And I can't explain what I did today.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to a filmmaker recently about the transformative impact of making work, especially personal work. And like her movie had played at Cannes, it had got amazing reviews. And I said, how much did that impact you, like the external stuff? And she was like, not at all. The question was sort of about the extent that she got affirmation from that rather than the film taking the shape that she wanted it to take or that it wanted to take, and that giving her a sense of understanding of herself and her aesthetics and her personality. And I'm sort of intrigued for you how that external versus internal question, how that manifests for you.
I think it's harder for actors. Then it kind of makes sense to me that the director was able to, discern and have some understanding of the external stimuli. But I think that it's much harder with actors. And Because we just don't have that agency. We didn't author it. I mean, in some sense, look at the word auteur, right? It's like,
right.
We're actors. We're not auteurs, We're in the realm of all these weird feelings and we're playing somebody. We're not ourselves. The whole thing is just very, very, precarious. And it leaves for a lot of like almost cracks or holes to let things in. It's just more porous or something. And, it's hard even, leaving the theater at night and leaving what happened there and returning back to myself, and going into a character. And the Greeks, one of the other reasons the Greeks used masks was to protect the actor from the character, because they knew how intense it was, that kind of merging with another kind of whatever we want to call the character. It's very strange when you try to define what it is, because it's not a ghost, but it's something that's, you're working with inside that has its own kind of desires. And it's very weird. And a lot of my life has been spent trying to figure out that threshold, how to merge with the character and how to go back to myself.
This is a very personal observation, but I feel like from recovery, one of those muscles that we were talking about, like the muscle of empathy, is one that has grown like infinitely stronger. For you, is that the same? And if so, has that helped with your ability to embody characters, to understand them, to portray difficult people in a way where you can take full ownership of those characters?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I kind of had an empathetic like muscle out of the gate in a way. And it's not a good or bad thing. I just feel like it's sort of part of, was kind of always, I guess, well, also because there was mental illness in my family. And so that I think already like has stuff. But I remember my mom said that when my dad was in the hospital, that I would, in the psych ward, I would go around in the waiting room and ask everybody how they were doing. Like when I was 4, I would introduce myself and say, how are you doing? Stuff like that. So I think that was kind of already at play. And so I haven't had to work on like, no, that human being would never do that. Or how could that human being do that? I'm kind of like, anything's possible. Everyone has everything inside of them in a certain way. No one's exempt in a certain way. And so everybody's human, even if they're a monster, there's something human. And so, that's my first thing that I'm honoring when I play character, is, to get to their humanness, even if they're a monster.
Yeah.
And then it's important for us to see all kinds of people as audience members. We don't want to censor and only have certain kinds of people that we're looking at.
Yeah. Is there as an actor, maybe this is particularly a complex question, but is there a difference between the way you see yourself and the way that others see you?
Yeah, I think so. Or it's just like more at front and center. I probably have the same kind of stuff that anybody else has in terms of perception of self, projections. It's just, I have maybe more projections coming at me because I'm projected on a screen and it's dark and sometimes I'm big or I'm in the living room and I'm really small and like, I'm like almost on your couch or something. I know because I've experienced it myself watching actors, and then I meet the actor and then I'm like, or I meet the, even the basketball player or the whatever. And so I know there's those projections and I know it's not personal, and just to not merge with the projection. And that's not easy.
Yeah. You were talking about that thing of leaving the theater and I guess leaving the character behind. Has acting sort of taught you to let go of things more easily, or is that still something that is sort of a recurring struggle? Or, whether it's a performance where there was one line where you felt like you didn't nail it, or a character that lingers with you, or a review that you read that sticks in your head. Have you developed the ability to put those things to one side and continue with the things that are truly important, or maybe feel more important?
Well, some of that's come with age. It's kind of like that thing that happens with wisdom. It's like you go down so many different paths in your first part of your life that by the second part of your life, you've experienced so many different paths that you don't keep going down those paths because you know what happens when you do. So it's like reading
Yeah.
reviews. I have enough experience to know what happens when I read a review. I'm not going to do it anymore because but what probably recovery's helped a lot with resentment in that understanding it means to refeel. And so when I'm refeeling something, I know that's not healthy for us. We are not meant to go round and round and round. We're meant to go forward. You know, it's not our natural state. Or to look back too is not a natural state. It's not natural. It's unnatural. So that's helped me kind of see, oh, I see, I'm refeeling this. Whereas I didn't know even I was. Until I understood what resentment meant, I didn't even know I was in a resentment.
That's really interesting. Yeah. So, like with resentment, what is your tried and true way of releasing, if you have one?
Well, being uncomfortable, getting uncomfortable enough with it, getting uncomfortable enough with the fear of after taking that breath. It's like I'm scared to take the breath and either give up power or acquiesce, or I don't know what it is that I feel like I'm giving up when I decide not to be resentful. But it's like a friend of mine always says, would you rather be free or would you rather be right? And it's like, there's moments when I'm like, no, I want to be right. God damn it. And I don't know why, but I do. And till that being right is so uncomfortable that finally the price of freedom or the loss of it is so high that I'm kind of like, fine, I surrender. I need to be free because I'm not free.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, I mean, my wife will tell people this until the cows come home, but like I have spent my life determined to be right. And it is a thing that I'm trying to let go of. Like even just the most facile things like being competitive when playing games or something like that. Like I'm not anymore, but people still think that I am because I used to be for so long. But I feel like we're brought up, you know, in school, you know, we stay in our parents' good graces if we do things right, if we get the answers right. So I feel like there's this thing about safety, but then as an adult, the complexity of life means that my own safety is dependent on the thing you're talking about, which is being free.
Yeah, exactly.
And sort of parsing that, like working out, because resentment is, you know, another classic program thing of like, you know, drinking the poison and expecting the other person to get sick. So it's like, it just doesn't work. And I'm just going to fuck myself up
with
resentment rather than, Yeah. But I don't think I've heard it said exactly as freedom. And I love that as an idea because freedom is a really great carrot to chase, if you like.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you're talking about that discomfort, I think for me, like I'm great at dealing with pain, but uncertainty and discomfort are the things that are the biggest challenge in a way. The things that are unknown or cloudy or where there's not something that I can adequately brace myself for. I feel like that stuff is really, really hard. And I wonder sort of as an actor and as a recovery person, how you've trained yourself to deal with those things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just all the experiences that I've had of going into the unknown. I mean, every time I take on a character, I'm going into the unknown. And I'm really also trying to create an environment where I'm really open so I can really go into the unknown. Because another thing I love about the meaning of character, and I think I put this in the book because it helped me so much when I learned about it, is that character is the tool that made etchings, marks on a slate originally.
Yeah.
And so I used to say, I still do, I try to become a blank slate. And now it's like, it's like my psyche has to become or part of it has to kind of clear out so that those marks can get made by the character. And then I can put my marks over hers, but I got to find out what hers are first, because it's almost like when I find out who she is, ideally, if I've done things right, then I can say, okay, with everything that I know, hello, this is me. I'm the one who's playing. I'm the channel you got, you know, like it or not, because some characters were not very nice to me and did not really want me to be the one.
Right.
I'm the one. And I just basically say, like, I'm going to do my best, but obviously I'm going to get in there because there's no way. The only way I can play you is by using me also.
Yeah. And that involves sort of getting out of your own way and creating that space.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, not a natural, not an instinctive thing maybe to do.
No, because it could feel like an invasion. It could feel like, and who's going to come in? What am I doing? I'm opening myself up to, and then of course, using yourself, and then the fear that you'll be ridiculed or called the worst actor in the world, or, and that's, I think, why a lot of actors, and me included, want to use these things to block me out. Like why a lot of acting, big acting, is for protection. Or coming up with a limp, or all these other big accents, or all these other things that are going to like cover you up or something.
When you're done with a role, like, does the character linger with you? And if it does, is that a comfortable or uncomfortable thing depending on who the character is?
It's uncomfortable. And the whole thing about acting, and when you're really in it, is you don't know. It's like, I have a really great example. I was filming this scene. You saw Arizona Dream, right?
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Yeah, right. I thought we talked about that because only like 3 people have seen it in the States. So I remember talking to you about it.
Yeah.
So anyways, I filmed the scene of attempting suicide all day. And I got home and I was talking to a friend and I just was like really depressed. And she was just like, what's going on? I don't know. She's just like, well, what did you do today? And I'm like, I just did this stupid scene where, I attempted suicide all day. Anyway, I had no idea that was actually affecting me when I got home. But of course, because if I'm in that, by doing my job, I'm feeling it. I'm in it, pretending, being. Well, the proof in the pudding is that it bled over. And that's the only, and so at the end of a project, it's like there's a bleed over and there's no way around it. And for the first week, I don't even know why I haven't acclimated yet. And then I remember, oh, right. Cause I'm in that thing. Right. But I still feel shitty. And then it passes eventually.
Is it a thing that your family have got used to, that first week?
Yeah.
You're sort of a different kind of person, maybe a person that they can't predict what kind of Lili is going to show up. Yeah,
they make room. And I've also said, like, I feel out of it, and they make room and they understand. So they just give me a wide berth,
Yeah. There's what you were saying, just talking about Arizona Dream, there's a line in the book where you say, sometimes I don't want to live, or I don't know how to live, or don't know why. These migrating birds don't ask why. And I love that line. And I thought I can definitely relate to that very strongly. And I feel like that question of how to live is weirdly like the most challenging because the working out of how to live to me is the one that has true complexity in it. And I'd love to hear you sort of, because I feel like the way that you have embraced birds as an inspiration and as a vehicle to convey joy to other people, I feel like that's been something that I've really noticed in you. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great one. And I think birds do help me stay in the day, in that, like, it's okay if I can just focus on today and how to be my better self today. Like, what are ways that I admire people being in the world? How can I be like that? How can I be open, not closed? It's like, it's the St. Francis prayer in a way, right? Where there's hope and where there's sadness, let me bring joy. And it's like, and to also see that there is a muscle that starts to build up. I mean, it's kind of a spiritual muscle, and it does kind of build up. But I still have to work at it daily though, because I can snap back easily. It's almost like when you get of a certain age, you can like eat and go back. You can gain 10 pounds in 2 seconds, and it's really hard to take off, but it can happen really fast. And I think in a way, like knowing that to not rest on your laurels, I got to keep working every day. But today, to imagine how I would feel at the end of the day if I wasn't like my better self.
Yeah.
Is that how I want to go through my day? Is that how I want to spend? No, I don't want to live like that. So those are some of the things that I try to kind of work with each day. And it's a back and forth. It's an up and down.
Yeah. How are you doing at the moment? This feels like such a time of uncertainty in micro and macro ways. I was spending time with some friends yesterday, one of whom is a climate scientist, and there was a lot of anxiety and frustration, as he put it, on 10 different fronts. As a birder, as a human, how are you facing the day at the moment?
Well, I'm not dealing with some of the things that these scientists are dealing with, these people who work in government, people who make policy, and I can only imagine what that must be like and the stress level that they're all going through. I just have a regular citizen of the United States problem who likes birds and who loves democracy.
Yeah.
My feeling is long game. In some ways, I'm kind of getting that it might not be for me or my generation, that I might have had my nice dance with democracy that I just didn't know was as fragile as it is. So it's really working for the future generations at this point. Because again, it's like, what am I going to do? Abandon it? Abandon them? It's that kind of question we've been talking about throughout the interview. It's like, what's the alternative? To just walk away? To give up? No, not an option.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons with birds and the book that's been kind of cool is I'm really seeing how birds, even if they're not like your thing, they are a really great way to do something about the climate because it's very tangible. It's manageable. It could bring you to something else if they end up not being like, I'm sorry, I like them, but they just don't do it for me. That's fine.
Yeah.
But they'll bring you to something else that will help the planet. And there's a thing you can do to help.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for doing this. I feel like my brain was always whirring with a million questions for you. I'm not sure if I asked you the right ones, but it was such a pleasure to talk.
No, well, you're a thinker. That's what you do. It's great. This was fantastic.
Well, thank you so much.
One of these days we'll go birding.
Yes.
One of these days you can see it's a little nutty now.
That sounds great.
Ooh, but it's okay. I'm ready for this, but it's a little nutty doing a book tour and trying to act.
Oh, for sure.
But it's good. It's all good, man.
Yeah, fantastic.
But someday I'll come to Sunset Park and bird.
I'd love that.
I'd love it.
I'm ready for it whenever. Thanks so much to Lili Taylor for talking with me, and thanks to you for listening. Turning to Birds is now available wherever you buy your books and comes highly recommended. This episode was produced by Myron Kaplan, and the theme music is by The Range. If you haven't already, please rate, review, and subscribe to the Talkhouse Podcast, and keep your eyes and ears peeled for another of these special Nobody's Ever Asked Me That episodes, as there's a lot of cool new stuff in the works.